everybody, welcome to the first episode of Podcast Beyond, the official IGN PlayStation podcast. Woo! I'm Jeremy Dunham, your host and editor-in-chief of the PlayStation team. And with me is Chief News and Features Editor, Chris Roper, who's formerly executive editor on the PlayStation team.
Hello.
Hi. We've got Jeff Haynes, who's an editor on the team.
How's it going?
And Greg Miller, who's also an editor.
Beyond.
Ooh, nice. That could replace Scoop.
Exactly. It's not. I can't say Scoop in here.
No. So this is experimental for us. This is the first podcast we've actually ever done as a team. So hopefully you'll like it, and if not, well, too bad. We're going to do it every week anyway. Or at least I'll make these guys do it, and I'll go somewhere else. So what we're going to do is we put a message board posting up for all our readers to check out and give us suggestions as to what they'd like to see in their ideal PlayStation podcast. And we saw quite a few suggestions. Number one, we'd really like to thank Justin Daly for the name Anticipation Station, which we're going to use later. And he also came up with the idea of calling our podcast Podcast Beyond. So thank you to him.
Enjoy your nothing.
Exactly. We have the no prize for you to borrow from Marvel. But, the first segment we're going to do is we're going to kick off every week with basically what the previous week meant for PlayStation news. And since Chris is the chief news and features editor, he'll be the one heading that up. And it was a great way for me to get him in these podcasts, even though he left us.
Yes.
And he wasn't here last week.
So take it away, Chris. What was big in PS news last week?
Well, there was a fair bit of stuff. Finally, once and for all, Rainbow Six Vegas went gold. It's been, week by week, been pushed back for a long time. But that's finally coming out this week, I think.
Yeah, and you're reviewing it for us.
Yes,
which I really
am reviewing it. Oh, God.
What do you think of that game so far?
So far, it's good. I mean, I'm, 4 levels in. I'm like right where you get to Vegas, right where you get inside the first casino. And, it's good. It's exactly like the 361. I haven't tried the online yet, but
does it look as good?
I would need to do a side-by-side comparison. Mm-hmm. Some of the early builds, I saw the game, the texture work didn't look quite right, but it seems to hold out pretty well in what I've seen so far. Because, I remember that there were occasionally you'd find some spotty texture work in the 361, so I think it's the same as the PS3 one. So, so far it seems identical. Runs well. That's a big one that everybody wants to know. So that's good.
Especially after we were a little bit iffy when we went to the Gamers Day thing for PlayStation.
Yeah. That
was when we saw that, we're like, oh, whoops.
Yeah, it's improved since then.
Excellent.
Another small game update is that the Tekken 5 is going to get online play. Mm-hmm. You know more about this than I do. But
yes, it is. It's going to be an add-on to the existing Tekken Dark Resurrection thing online, and it's basically going to be $10. They haven't really set a date yet, just before the end of the year. And you're going to be able to download that and play your friends online, which I'm really excited about because, as everybody knows, I'm a Tekken nut. Not a very good Tekken nut, but I still like the series anyway. And so I'm actually really excited about that.
Yeah. So that's a pretty big one for Tekken fans. MotorStorm finally got its update.
Took them long enough.
Yeah,
it was about 3-4 weeks.
Yeah. Jeff, what do you know about that?
Well, part of it was because I wound up writing most, if not all, the news on it. It was supposed to come out at the beginning of this month. Yeah, the news is. and the first grammatical error goes to me. I wrote all the news pieces on it, and it was supposed to come out at the beginning of this month, and they kept pushing it back. The first time was because it just wasn't ready. Then the second time was because they found a couple of bugs or some issues with it, and so they were waiting, and they released a statement that we wound up getting about how they wanted to make sure that it was right. And then right when they were going to release it the third time, they found some massive network issue that would literally render some network capability of a system unusable. Whether that was like a full-on thing that you would have to reset your system with or not, it just managed to make playing MotorStorm online impossible.
And what's in it? It's got the time. It's got the time challenge. It has ghosts.
Yeah, it's the time attack mode and the ghost lapping that you can post on leaderboards and see how well you did, as well as download other people's trial through a certain lap, so you can find out how well they did or how the best person in the world did what they did.
We got a couple emails from some people that said that when they installed it, it messed up their saves. Did any of you guys run into that problem when you did it?
I didn't, but I also contacted Sony about that because we were just wondering whether or not that was even going on. They hadn't run into it with any of the tests that they ran through, and they because they've had so many bugs, they ran it through multiple systems on both North American and European systems. They found nothing right now.
So for those of you that did run into that problem, you should definitely email Sony support so they can figure out the problem. Maybe there's a way to get your save back. I doubt it, but maybe.
Yeah.
Anything else interesting happen?
Well, and also, and add on that, it might also be a good idea to back up your save before you install the update.
Definitely. Use that USB port. I mean, it's there for a reason.
Yeah, exactly. What else happened this week? A couple announcements by Sony is Kaz Hirai said that by March 2008, Sony will have 380 PS3 games available.
I wonder if he's counting all the PS2 games that are playable on PS3.
I don't know. According to this thing, it says, and this was with the interview to the Nikkei Business Daily. I don't know if I pronounced Nikkei right, but anyway.
I think it's Nikkei.
Yeah, Nikkei, whatever it is. Anyway, that they're going to have 200 retail games on store shelves and 180 PlayStation Network games. I mean, clearly it's, nobody knows what games they're talking about here, but the PlayStation Network stuff so far is a lot of re-released PlayStation 1 games. So, if you figure 80, 90% of those are going to be rehashes, then, you're talking maybe like 20 original PlayStation games, and so you're talking maybe, a little over 200 original titles.
They really need to step it up. I mean, I can believe the retail stuff with all the third parties and all the releases coming out. But so far, we've had next to nothing on the PlayStation Network itself. So
it's
dry. Yeah,
people are getting
really
so mad.
But you can't blame them.
that.
I mean,
No.
like right now, there's practically nothing there versus the 360, where there's at least like 5-10 things coming out for it,
Even
minimum every
the
week.
virtual console.
No, not that many,
stuff.
man. 5 to 10 would be insane. It's really more realistically. It's really more like
it's not
two
solely like
games
games or anything for the 360. It's more like you have games, then you've got TV shows, movies, everything else. I mean, there's at least 5 to 10 things you can get every week on live versus like the PlayStation Store, where you might get a trailer and then maybe a demo if you're lucky. Like the past couple of weeks, we've gotten like 4 or 5 trailers and like one demo.
Well, that's because they're just playing
Puzzle was a
Championship
finished
Sprint still.
Yeah.
That's why you don't want to flood the market with great games.
At least we get Super Stardust HD this week, which I'm really looking forward to.
See, the one thing that Sony's going to need to watch out for, though, is if they don't. It looks like when Home comes out that they're going to be relying on user-created content, and hopefully they don't just kind of sit back and let users basically do all of their updates, for them, and they still provide a lot of content. Because I
guess we'll find out.
Yeah, one problem is there's not enough stuff, and another problem is things like the MotorStorm update and like Calling All Cars, is those things got pushed back week by week by week. And
Resistance map packs, another good example.
There you go. So stuff keeps getting delayed on there, and you kind of should take Microsoft's stance and just not tell you what's coming out, and then all of a sudden it appears, and you're like, hey, cool.
Yeah. Or if they are going to tell us about it, don't be so exact on your date. Don't say it's definitely coming out last week of May.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't do that. Bad idea.
Or do it the day before it comes out. Right. You're like, it's ready. And then the last big news, I guess, is this is for the Japanese gamers at least, is that upon its release of Hot Shots 5 or Minute No Golf 5, Sony's going to they're going to have a new PlayStation 3 bundle, which will have the game included in the box for both the 60 and 28 versions of the system, and there's going to be like a new, cardboard box holding the thing if you want to picture the golfer on the outside.
Can't wait for that.
Yeah, and it's going to be a little more than the current system, by itself, but you're going to get a savings of about 4,000 yen as opposed to if you bought them separately. So. It's
not bad. Believe it or not, that story was one of the most popular stories that we had last week. People clicked on that like crazy.
Yeah, it's a big game in Japan. So, yeah, that's pretty good news for them. The people that haven't bought the system yet. So.
And by the way, in case you're wondering why we're covering last week's news, it's because we drew the bad day. We had to do the our podcast every Monday, which means we can't really report news before it happens. So it's always going to be pretty much a recap of what happened the previous week, which isn't bad. I think hindsight's a very good thing to have. Mm-hmm. And who knows, maybe little developments can happen that we can talk about.
Well, I can tell you that this week some game will be announced by somebody.
That's a good tip.
It could be Crave. It could be, I don't know.
Somebody somewhere will announce a game. That is a dynamite point.
Yes, exactly. So there's your foresight.
Well, that actually brings me to our main topic of the day, which is going to be Sony at E3. I mean, let's talk about it. We're only 2 weeks away. Today we officially kick off our 2-week coverage that we have every single year as we count down to the show with today's Dark Sector hands-on, first direct feed, things like that. What do you think Sony's going to offer at E3? What do they need to do at E3 this year in order to really kind of change the perception they created last year? And what do you think they will do?
Well, the main thing that Sony has to do is show that it has content that other systems do not have. It can't come out there and say, hey, look, we have Grand Theft Auto 4, and we have Assassin's Creed, and they have all this other stuff. Those are all great games, obviously, but then you can also go, hey, 360 has those too. You need to have games like Heavenly Sword, things like Metal Gear Solid 4, games that are only going to appear on the PS3, and Sony really needs to hype those things and show them off very well, make as many of them as playable as possible, have a bunch of new announcements. There needs to be some new news at the show, as opposed to just new builds of games that we've heard about before. Basically, it just needs to sort of while trying to leapfrog the 360 in some fashion, it also needs to stand out and kind of do like sort of what Nintendo's doing a little bit by being different. It needs to do the same sort of thing with a big library of unique games that nobody else is going to have, and that's really that's the only thing it can do at this point.
They need another Gamers Day. When the GDC came around, there was that thing where they came out and they're like, all right, here's home and here's Little Big Planet and this is what's happening and this is all at GDC. And then for those 3 days, everybody's like, oh man, Sony might turn this around. Yeah, this is awesome. And then it was, oh, by the way, Devil May Cry 4 is going to Xbox. And it was right back in the toilet with all the PR. So, They just need to come out and be like, we're still pushing forward. Give a date. Give some solid dates for some of this stuff. Like, if you could tell people when Home's coming for sure, if you could give some new stuff as far as showing what's coming up with it, Uncharted, all that stuff, yeah.
Well, Home is on target for October right now, and barring any problems, it's supposed to come out in October.
It is a PlayStation Network release, though, so
so it could slip. But they also need to do a couple of things that everybody's been looking for. They need to break out Killzone. They need to break out things like SOCOM. They need to maybe I don't know, maybe talk about what the hell Africa is for once. There's certain things that people have known about and had buzz about for a while, but they've just gone like, well, where the hell did this go?
Identify. They're really clamoring to find out what happened to that one.
No, I don't even. I'm not even worrying that much about that. But they're just certain titles that the boards really want to know about. And nothing's actually come out about them. But they also need to do a couple of other things. Like they need to solidify what their PSN strategy is. Because right now, it really doesn't exist. It's kind of hit or miss. That's why a lot of people are pissed. They need to figure out what exactly they're going to do with the PSP as far as PSP, PS3 connectivity, or if PSP is even going to get any peripherals. Maybe put to rest the whole PSP redo or Redux, as whatever it's going to be called. If it's coming, if it's not coming, however that's going to happen. And then finally, just let people know what the hell is going on with the PS2. If they're going to try and kill it off or if they're going to extend it to the 10-year plan. Because some people are like, well, yeah, it's going to die this year. It's going to die next year. It'll never die. And some people are constantly going well, because the PS3 is so expensive, why the hell am I going to do that when I can just have my PS2? And so there's this huge thing, especially with the PS3 delays, where people are just trending more towards PS2 now, which is great. But, that's not the way that the business is really going, so they need to kind of decide that.
I think that Sony's E3 is going to be made or not made based on the performance of Killzone. They've been, after that video that they showed in 2005, what it could do, they created a huge amount of buzz, and people have really been wondering just how much it's going to live up to that original video.
I hope it looks like original Doom. Show that video.
Low-res textures.
Yeah. Turns out to be like a puzzle game. That'd be fantastic. So I think that if they can come out strong with that particular game, that everything else will be a highlight, and that will be the main make-or-break moment for them. I think that, from what I understand, that game probably won't meet that trailer. That was a really tall order. I think there's no way it'll look like that. Maybe direction, but not necessarily in the visuals. But I think that is the big moment. I'm personally looking forward to seeing it. And actually just got an invitation today to go check it out. So at E3, so not before. So I'm really anxious to see how that turns out. But that really leads me to predictions. What do you think, Greg, is going to be the biggest surprise to occur at E3 from Sony?
The biggest surprise?
Yeah. If you were to predict something, what do you think they're going to come out and do?
They'll introduce a mascot for SingStar Network. Some kind of...
It could be the worst prediction I've ever heard.
Some plush walking, talking microphone. Sing it with me, folks.
All right, Chris, your turn.
I can't top that one. I don't know. I kind of want to say that they're going to announce some sort of PSP redesign, but I don't think that's going to happen at E3. Maybe they'll announce that they're going to do one. But who knows? And I don't know. I think it's going to be kind of, oh yeah, we expected that to happen. I think they'll fully unveil Gran Turismo 5 there. Not HD. They'll show the real deal, which I'm really, really looking forward to. I don't know. They'll make a bunch of expected things. I don't think it's going to happen there, but I really hope that they're going to show the next Team Ico game. But that's Shadow was announced at some Japanese event by itself in some weird boardroom. So I don't think it's going to happen at E3, but I would like to see that. But yeah,
you sound so excited.
Well, no, it's I don't think it's going to be anything mind-blowing. I think it's going to be a bunch of like, oh, yeah, hey, cool, yeah, I forgot about that series. Here it is on PS3 for the first time. That sort of stuff. But I don't think there's going to be anything that's, I mean, like when the PS3 was announced and they had all those trailers and you had like Fight Night 3 and MotorStorm and all that stuff. I mean, a lot of them were fake, but that was a really, really, really fantastic presentation, and they're not going to be able to beat that.
No.
So now it's kind of like.
I have to say that at least out of all those presentations, at least Insomniac came to the table with actual gameplay footage in that presentation. I think in retrospect, that was the only one that had it.
Yeah. Well, no, Fight Night did. I mean, Fight Night wasn't.
Fight Night was almost.
But it was an engine though.
It was yeah. That was close. I don't think that was exact. From what I understand, that was put together by a CG house using in-game assets.
Well,
so who knows? Jeff, your prediction?
I kind of have to agree with Chris. Like, I'm not entirely sure what it would be. If anything, it's probably going to be more software driven. I mean, I'd love to see it possibly be something related to the PSP, like peripheral wise or not. But I don't know what it would even come close to being. But like, I'd love it to be something like one of the secret projects that they wind up breaking out is something like Jak and Daxter PS3, or some other like franchise that Sony fans have like played before, like and they really weren't expecting it, but all of a sudden it just winds up coming out and they're like, hey, and now coming in 2008, like.
I like your prediction. They're going to announce something.
Yeah, they're going to announce something, and it will be something interesting.
Something big will happen is my announcement.
But my guess is that it would probably be something like they dip into the Sony franchise grab bag and pull out something like, Twisted Metal like for the PS3 or Jak and Daxter for the PS3. Something that literally every Sony fan would just go, oh my god, that's exactly what I want to see on PS3. And then they show something, and it's incredible. That, or they actually put something on stage that is playable of a game that we've seen for a couple of years that we can actually go, wow, that's what it's supposed to look like, and that's what they've always been promised.
But other than Killzone, what's left? Nothing else has really been kept under wraps, and is that big?
Except for Africa.
Except for maybe Africa or 8 Days, actually, which looked really badass last year.
Yeah.
That game, I'm really curious to see where it comes. And don't believe EB 8 Days is not coming out in December.
No.
EB when it lied.
Nobody has ever seen it. Well, hey, that's good. That's good for me. Let's just end the show.
Oh.
No, I'm kidding.
That's pretty quick.
Did you put in E3 prediction?
Well, my big prediction is I do think that there's going to be a PSP redesign announcement. I'm pretty.
You do?
Yeah, I do. I think that's pretty much going to happen. And if it doesn't happen at E3, it'll happen right before TGS. I'm pretty confident that's going to happen. And if I'm wrong, it wouldn't be the first time. But I really think that that's something they really want to draw attention to, because as strong as PSP sales have been, and let's face it, they are strong. People give it a rough time because its software sales aren't there. That they're going to want to get that buzz going again. They've started that new marketing campaign, the get your own, which are really funny commercials. Mm-hmm. And I think they want to take that next step. And I think the next step is to introduce a new version of the PSP. May not be a drastic difference, but I do think you're going to see something change. I do think that you're also going to see. I agree with Jeff. A popular franchise brought back. What that franchise is, who knows? We haven't heard from the Sucker Punch guys yet. We just know that they're not doing Sly Cooper. So, it'd be interesting to see what they're working on. And I wouldn't be surprised if 8 Days came out and made a surprise appearance too. It's going to be an interesting E3. I mean, last year after the show, if you remember, I was interviewed by Jessica Chobot for IGN Weekly, and that was the first show or the first press conference of the show, and I thought they actually had a pretty good showing at the time, and I thought that they had taken the whole thing again. Of course, I didn't have that in context to put against the absolutely killer Nintendo and 360 press conferences they had afterwards. So at least Sony has the advantage this year in being that they're last, the very last press conference you're going to see, and I think they're going to play off that and maybe announce things they might not otherwise have done based on what the other guys do.
That's possible.
Yeah.
One thing that I want to add in, I think that Sony will announce in some fashion is either a price drop or maybe not a price drop, but at least a rebundling. So you'll get some sort of free game with the system, which I think is probably, if they can't drop the price, you can give out copies of Resistance or something in the box.
That'd be a good move.
And, I mean, because it's been a long time since you've been able to get a free game in the box, aside from Wii Sports, which is highly overrated. But
And it's bold, but I wouldn't be surprised if just to kind of maybe push extra units, maybe they'll drop down the 60 gig price to the old 20 gig price and knock it down to $500.
That, or they could possibly do what they did in Korea and actually make a new one with 80 gigs and do something else, like have a completely different repackaging of the system with maybe something else.
But keep the same price point.
Keep the same price point, but have like kind of a ultra premium pack or something just to help.
Yeah, but the 80 gig thing is kind of pointless because it's the 20 gigs over the 60, and you can put whatever hard drive you want in there.
Yeah,
Like the new terabyte hard drive they announced this morning from Seagate.
Well, I don't think that.
Put that bastard in there.
It's not a notebook drive though.
Would it even recognize it?
But I mean, yeah, you can spend a couple $100 and get a few hundred gigs in there. So
as much as we bitch about E3, this is actually my favorite part about the entire process. It's just the speculation and what's leading up to the show and what we're going to see. Of course, it probably, other than 2005, it never lives up to the expectations. But who knows? Maybe we'll get lucky. But let's change gears a little bit. We're also going to introduce a brand new segment every week. We're going to call it Pick of the Week, or it's maybe something clever if our listeners can come up with any of that, where we're going to go over the PlayStation library, see what's coming out this week on all three platforms, and pick out the best one. Greg drew first here, and he's actually got Grim Grimoire, which is a pretty good strategy title on the PlayStation 2.
Beyond! Yes! Grim Grimoire comes out this week, and you should buy it.
Thanks for that dynamite description.
Hey, it's awesome.
All right, next.
No, but yeah, it's great. Why not like it? Yeah, it's about magic, and you're Lilith Blaine, and you're a first-year student at this magic academy. And don't even start talking that it's like Harry Potter, because that's just a blanket statement that makes you sound like an idiot, and me sound like an
idiot.
Who
are you talking to?
Whoever's listening to this. Joe Blow sitting at his computer drinking a Dr. Pepper. I can see you. You disgust me. Anyways. Yeah, so you'll play through and you use all these different runes in different categories. One of our video guys is pressing himself up against the glass.
Which isn't the first time.
That's making me uncomfortable. But no. So it's real cool because you use all these different runes and you use different types of magic. So you can use fairies to attack ghosts and ghosts to attack alchemy stuff. And then you have these sorcerers and dragons and all this crazy crap happening. But it's a really nice style. It's from the same developer that put out Odin Sphere. Vanilla-Soft, yeah. And so it's 2D. It looks really, really pretty. The cutscenes are really nice, and they're animated, but they're standalone too. It's got a little bit of a wonky storyline, but basically you're this first-year student, and in your first 5 days, all hell breaks loose, and this guy comes out, and he starts killing everybody because he's this devil spirit, and you keep going back in time like Groundhog Day and trying to change the course of events through these battles. So basically how the gameplay breaks down is that there's a story part in the beginning of the mission or level, however you want to talk about it. Then there's the battle, where you come out and you have to, it's usually along the lines of destroy the runes that your opponent has up and conquer the whole map. And then there's another piece of story at the end that bookends it like that. And then the cool thing about how they do it is, since this is a pretty complicated story with all these characters getting introduced and reintroduced, and you meet them again and you know more about them, you can go back at the main menu. They have it set up like a giant bookcase. So you can go back at any time and look at the old books, and they all have descriptors on it from Lilith's journal. So it'll say, like, day one, time I did it, the third time or whatever, and you go through, and it's got a summary of what happened. But you could watch the scene again. That way you can pick up and know what they're talking about later on in the end, because it gets really, really complicated.
How about
with all the relationships.
the actual battle system? I mean, what separates it from other strategy RPGs like, Final Fantasy Tactics or an Ogre Battle?
I think it gives you more time to think on most of the battles. Because what happens is you're on this two-dimensional map and it's multi-storied of like the school. Like it would give you the impression that you're walking through these hallways of the school, or I guess levels of the school, and then there's staircases going up. And where you are, and you have to gather the mana from these crystals, and then you use that to buy more troops or create more stuff. So you only have a very select spotlight of what you can see. So if you move troops out, you're going to run into other runes, you're going to run into other enemies, and as you beat them, you can set up an outpost there and see more stuff of what's happening. But if you go out there and you get beat, then you still have time back at your home base to think, all right, well, those guys were sorcery, and they're vulnerable from my fairies and other kinds of forest.
So everything's timed. It's not traditional turn-based.
Oh, yeah, it's not turn-based. It's real-time. Yeah, so you're going out, coming back, and doing that, and you have to think on your feet, and then there's always the really tense moments of you go out there and all of a sudden you discover there's a dragon out there, so you have to make a dragon or make something that could beat the dragon. So you got to hope that you have enough mana already stored to sit down and make a new rune. Then you got to wait for that rune to be created while you're defending probably whoever's trying to attack you. And then once that's done, you have to create the person or the dragon who can fight the next dragon. Like there's this whole element of timing your attacks, knowing who's out there. Like a lot of times, the way I did it the most was I'd start off with whoever, because they give you runes in the beginning to start with, which are where you create your troops. Mm-hmm. And I'd create as many as I could there, and then start sending them out to see what else they were using. Because there's always usually when you start going, your enemies are going to be using 2 types of runes. So it's one of those things. The way they describe it is it's a rock paper scissors relationship, which there's 4 things, which doesn't really work to me.
You played the crap out of this game.
I did. No, I did. I put in an enormous amount on this one to beat it. So.
All right. So then there you have it. It's Grim Grimoire from Nipponichi and VanillaSoft, and it's out as of tomorrow.
Yep.
So go check it out. You give it an 8.4?
Yeah, right below impressive. Yeah.
See
or
that?
impressive. Look at you. You're a computer
encyclopedic head. But, one thing out of an entire message board post, the thing that everyone kept asking about was bring back IGN PSQ, which is this old series message boards we used to do way back before any of you guys were on the team with me, where we would set up a game and we would say, what do you want to know about this? And then every week I would get all the best questions together. I'd go through them all and I'd answer them as best as I could, or we'd have somebody else on the team do it. We're going to bring that back because everybody and their uncle requested the damn thing. And so IGN PSQ is actually going to be kind of a conglomeration of the old idea, which is go ahead and ask us about an old game that you're curious about, and reader mail. So we're going to kind of put the 2 together. It'll depend on the week and the subject, but this week PSQ is only going to be the mailbag, which brings us to our favorite part, which is always the reader questions. So I'm going to pose these to you guys and see what you think. This is from Rogue Leader. Please freaking bring back the PSQ deal. I loved being able to ask specific questions about upcoming games like they did back in the day. By the way, why the hell did you guys ever stop doing that in the first place? I guess since I'm the only one who was here at the time, I'm probably the only one who can answer that question. The answer is actually pretty simple. I was the only channel doing it on the PlayStation, even though we started it on multiple channels. And after a while, we were the only guys around that were actually continuing to do so. And so for consistency's sake, they decided to drop the feature because we didn't want to run in a situation where only the PlayStation guys were doing this feature and then everybody else wasn't. But now we have a podcast and we can do whatever we want in it. So here it is. It's a big to the man.
That was a finger. You
They
can't see
Beyond.
it.
That's
You can't
right.
see it via audio. But it was a giant finger. The middle one.
So, Chris, this one comes from Godfather X. He wants to know if we're going to be at PAX this year.
Somebody's going to go. Probably Levi, our wireless guy. Who knows? Somebody's going to go there, though.
Why wouldn't you go to PAX?
I don't know. It's in Seattle or whatever hell it is.
You just don't like the Penny Arcade comics?
No, I mean, I think they're funny.
I think they're very funny. Have you ever played... I have Gabe on my Xbox Live's friend list, and the last time I played with him was years ago, but we were playing Rainbow Six.
I was in this.
You remember that?
Uh-huh.
Do you remember? He's one of the quietest people I've ever played any Xbox Live game with.
He didn't say anything for like a bunch of rounds, and then at the end was like, "Thanks, guys."
I know.
Thanks, guys. See you later. He was very, very cordial at the end, and
totally the opposite of the comic persona.
Yeah.
Good, nice, very nice person though. But I was just surprised at how quiet he is. There's a little some inside info.
So Penny Arcade comics are bullshit.
You
Those
don't like
aren't
them?
really them. No, I like them a lot.
Yeah.
But now I don't because I know that's all just a facade.
You realize they're cartoons.
Right.
I really thought they fought like that.
They really don't have
Like when he
superpowers.
chopped that guy's head off for Puzzle Quest. That was pretty cool.
This one comes from David Dole. Is it Dole or Noel? Because I always recognize David Dole on our boards, but what you've got typed here is David Noel.
I think it's David Noel.
All right, then.
I went
He's just
to
making
school
up
with the
names
kid's
now.
name.
Well, this-
Matt
how about
Noel. Matt Noel, if you're listening, call
We'll
me.
blame it on Greg.
How about if we just say it's David?
What
Hey,
was
David.
David Noel?
For God's sake, someone please discuss SOCOM. It's a huge franchise that for some reason the media ignores despite its enormous success. They are finally returning to their roots to close quarters, tactical online play, and running with huge open maps and vehicles. What do you think... Oh, wait, well, that's multiple questions.
David,
so
no
somebody
blood
talk about
for
it.
oil.
Well,
No
he
blood
just
for oil.
contradicted. He said, they're returning to tight tactical play, and they're having huge maps. That doesn't make any sense. Anyway,
Takes 3 hours to get from one side to the other. You're all like bunched together looking around.
Well, it's tight and tactical.
For one thing, I don't think that anybody should say that we don't talk about SOCOM because we covered that series better than anybody else.
We've had the exclusive review every year.
Yeah, we were the first people with stuff on the with the PSP game
And
on
the
Tactical
PS3
Strike,
game.
and the PS3 game. So, we've written everything that there is to write about it so far.
Do you think the media in general ignore SOCOM?
I think to an extent it does. It's a very hardcore game, and the people that are into it love it to no end. But and it has a big following, but not gigantic. So the traffic isn't there for people to write new features about every week, and the fans of it are such big fans that no matter how much you write about it, you're never going to have enough.
Sort of like Metal Gear.
Yeah, exactly. So
Metal Gear.
Well, the other thing that people don't realize is that in the past, at least the previous SOCOM games, the Zipper guys are actually really open about their game, and they'll tell you almost everything about it from the very beginning.
Except the Zipper's not doing these games.
Exactly. So if you notice, there's not a lot of info out right now.
Yeah.
But in the past, Zipper was always like, here's our game, enjoy, and then we would know practically everything about it months and months before it came out and do a lot of write-ups. So the point to where as we got closer, I'm just speaking personally, I can't speak for other publications, to the point to where we got closer to the game's release, there weren't a lot of details outside of maybe picking out something extremely. What the hell are you doing over there? Sounds like you're humping your microphone. But anyway,
Oh my God.
so it always gave us a little less to talk about. This game, trust me, we're paying attention because it looks cool.
The other thing too about the SOCOM is that it's a very community-driven game, and so until you have the opportunity to get on there, a bunch of times and play, a wide variety of people across different, number of different setups and things like that, you can't really get a good feel for it. So, we can sit back and we can say, here's how the game plays in general, and here's sort of what it feels like, but we couldn't ever give you, a 100%, here's exactly what's going on with this game until you got to the point where everybody's on at the same time and they have those setups at the end of the game's release and stuff. So leading up to it, we're the best we can do is kind of tell you, what the plans are, like some very, very quick hands-on type stuff once we get to play the game, but you won't be able to get any sort of really detailed facts about how we think the game plays and how well it runs and stuff until right before release, just, because those things aren't set up until then.
Yeah, the only other thing about, part of the whole, lack of SOCOM coverage, which I think you might be talking about, is, the map pack situation, whether or not a map pack actually has come out for things like PS2, not necessarily PS3. And part of that is because we've actually gone to not only Sony and Zipper, but, everybody trying to find out information about map packs when we can, or, delays for map packs. And there's only so much information that we can actually get, because either they're in the middle of, working on the map packs, or trying to crush all the bugs, all the things that people can use to cheat, or just, take advantage of every map pack. And so there's not necessarily going to be something that they can give us all the time as to what's going on with, SOCOM 2, SOCOM 3 map pack. So it's...
Other than Chris, are any of you guys SOCOM players?
I played the first one and then just fell off after that.
I will play, whenever a new one comes out, I will play for pretty much a couple weeks, and then usually by that time, the people that are going to exploit it have started to just run rampant, and that's when I usually wind up just jumping out, because then it's no longer fun.
All the cheaters?
Yeah, so when you start getting into people that just start exploiting the system and start, shooting through walls and doing all the other retarded things that they've done in the past, it no longer becomes fun.
Rogue Leader wants to know, what I really want to know? How much information are you guys really privy to before E3? I want you to give us an idea of how much you guys secretly are cognizant of. You don't have to specifically tell us what you know, but give us an idea of how much you know and how impressive you think this information really is. That way, you aren't breaking any NDAs.
That's the second one from Rogue Leader. He's staying on target, isn't he?
It is, yeah.
The answer is Dunham knows everything.
Is it?
Which is why that was a loaded question.
Do
What do you
everything?
expect at E3? Because he's always over there on the phone. What can you tell me for our on-the-record list? Now, what can you tell me for our off-the-record list?
We actually know quite a bit off the record, and I think that if we do a good job of keeping that from you, then we're doing our jobs well. We definitely tell you everything we can when we know it. But I'd say, I can tell you right now, we know 90% of Sony's lineup. We know 90% of everyone else's lineup. We know completely what everyone is showing, other than their few surprises here and there. We know what's playable, what isn't. But these are all facts that people don't want out there in the public for obvious reasons, because dates change. And look at all the shit we get on our release dates when they're changed week to week. People don't realize it until a game comes out. Release dates are tentative until they're right there in your hand.
Yeah.
So people always want that information, but we give it to you when we can.
Yeah. Now, to clarify, most of what we know are what games are going to be there and things like that, but a lot of the information that comes out of conferences, announcements, say, price or releases for, peripherals or, any new stuff like that, that stuff we generally don't know much about beforehand. A lot of that's everything from GDC to TGS to E3 or whatever. Those conferences we normally don't know too much about. We'll know that if they're going to announce a game from some time to time, but but we know the games lineups that are going to be on the show floor and those sorts of things. But the conferences are generally a mystery to us.
And they do that on purpose because they want genuine surprise reactions, and they're so important that they don't want any possibility of leaks whatsoever.
Yeah, and I'm kind of glad about it too because it gives me something to, there is that element of surprise. Because you'll hear about it, hey, in a few months we're going to announce SOCOM for PS3, and I'm like, okay, cool, when can we talk about this? And finally the announcement comes out. It's like, oh yeah, I've known this is going to happen for a long time. There's SOCOM 4 or whatever.
How long were we talking about SOCOM before they'd actually announced? 4 months.
Everybody knew the game was going to come out at some point, so that wasn't that much of a mystery. But but I mean, something like the conferences at E3, though, you're like, okay, what are they going to show me? And then all of a sudden, here's blah, new PS3 that floats or whatever, and you're like, wow, that was amazing.
But that's why there's also something about like the whole thing of like kind of being surprised because if you look back like I think it was earlier this month where everybody was like, oh my god, Megaton June 12th, oh my god, and it was some of those things where like when it was finally announced and it was like, well, that's okay. And it was like, there's this whole hype machine that people sometimes wind up getting themselves into because they're so worried about, oh, we really want to find out. We want to break the NDA. We want to do whatever. And then they find themselves getting like completely and utterly let down because it's not the thing that they were hoping it was going to be with the announcement.
I'll admit that a part of me thought it was really hilarious that whole June 11th thing was broken on our site 3 days before the site that actually was talking about it. Mm-hmm. And for those of you who missed, it was the Agency. It was the big game that everyone said, wait until June 11th when this thing hits the web and it's fantastic. It was the Agency, which looks cool. But we had the exclusive on it beforehand, which is why I just thought it was funny.
It was one of those things that people were like, oh my god, this could be incredible. This could be the best thing. And it's like, well, you realize that that's one of the reasons why we actually sign NDAs, is so that, like, if we are going to hold back and then break out a true megaton, it actually is, like, something that you really want to find out about. And that will be worth the hype, as opposed to just having this thing where it's like, oh, wait, that sucked.
This question comes from Ayamakin. He wants to know, or she, because I'm not quite sure what an Ayamakin is how important is an exclusive like Final Fantasy 13 or Metal Gear Solid 4 to Sony?
At this point, it's very
incredibly crucial right now. Yeah.
So, do you guys think that if it loses either one of those games or both, that Sony's in trouble?
Yep, I think so. I mean, well, maybe they'll come out with something else to counter it, but I mean, something like both those games, Metal Gear Solid 4 and Final Fantasy, both basically transcend their sales numbers. They might sell a couple million, but also many, many times that watch those games and say, oh, MGS4 looks awesome on the PS3. I wonder what, that series may not be my thing, but if it can do that, it's going to do some other really cool stuff. I'm not a huge Metal Gear fan, but I'm really following that game just because it's, like the showpiece basically for the system. It's one of the only things that's exclusive to it. It's awesome. But so if it loses those, then it's kind of like, well, now what do they have? And I might as well go get something else that has Halo, for example.
Yeah, those two titles or those two franchises themselves are literally system sellers. Like it doesn't really matter whether or not you actually have something which proved itself like Resistance. If you have the name Metal Gear Solid or Final Fantasy and you attach it with the visuals that they're putting on it, you will sell a system. And the thing is like when kind of like what Greg was talking about earlier, when DMC4 made the leap from PS3 only to it's going to be on the 360, everybody went apeshit. It was like, what the hell are they doing? Oh my god, if this happens, what's going to happen to some other system or to some other franchise? And that's going to be one of those things where if Sony keeps losing like these big known franchises that everybody like knows exactly what they're getting, then a lot of people are going to go, well, what the hell do I even care about this? It's easily more expensive than a 360. The 360 is going to get it anyway, and if you go off of reviews or how people are scoring things, 360s are getting better scores for their games than the PS3. Why the hell am I going to do that?
So
established library.
You could always also, the thing about the scores, you could also argue that maybe we have higher standards than the people reviewing the 360 games.
No, that's true.
No, that's not. I'm not saying that specifically.
Everybody, we are all friends beyond.
I mean, each team has its own inner workings. Every team works a different way.
But
and it's totally, back in the DCP era, it was well known around the office. We would always give Doug a hard time, for instance, because he thought everything was great. Mm-hmm. And so I mean, it's really all a matter of perspective. But I hear what you're saying.
And it's also perception too.
What do you think the chances are of either one of those games actually going to 360, Greg?
Ooh. Man, I'd like to say not well, but not well. That doesn't even answer. But yeah,
I'd like to say
it's a hot one. It is. But no, I mean, I think there's a 50-50. I'll say.
Chris.
I think for Final Fantasy is extremely low. I can't even think of one aside from 11 that has been cross-platform. And for MGS4, I could see that going to 360, but not for at least 6 months after the release.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same. Final Fantasy is definitely a no. If anything, they'd come out with like 13, some other remix of 13, but it's definitely not going to be Final Fantasy.
13 Barbecue.
Yeah, MGS4, definite possibility, but it could be anywhere within that 6 to year window.
As for me, I think that Final Fantasy going to 360, I think you got an 80-20 shot that it stays exclusive to PS3. Metal Gear, I think it's 70-30 that it stays PS3 for 6 months and then moves on over to 360, maybe a year. But it'd be great for Sony fans if they got both of them. We cover too many systems to fit all this stuff in just a small amount of time in a podcast. I'm just realizing how much crap we actually cover. It's amazing.
You realize it's 30 minutes into the show.
Now?
This question comes from Chocoburger. What are your predictions for the chances of hearing about Rumble for the 6-axis and a price drop? We've already covered the price drop. Rumble on the 6-axis.
I think it's extremely likely. I'd be very, very, very surprised if they didn't announce that at E3. I actually forgot to talk about that beforehand.
How many months ago did they announce that was all like
the immersion deal?
3 or 4.
Yeah,
a while ago.
Yeah, definitely.
So I mean, it's definitely coming. Who knows what state it's going to be in? Is it going to be packed in with the system starting there? Will you have to buy it separately? I don't know. Who knows what's going to happen with that? But it's definitely going to happen at some point, though.
My prediction: they're gloves that you wear and then plug into the controller.
God.
Oh, Jesus.
Amazing! Can you play Rad Racer with it while you're wearing sunglasses? 'Cause that would be awesome.
This next question, actually, I think is pretty cool. It comes from Mellow One. Name the one feature that'd be most important in the next PS update to you, Greg.
Oh wow! Does it count that I'd like to see the store redesigned? I mean, I guess that's more of an update they could do anytime. I'd like to see the store redesigned. I don't like it.
I agree with that, Chris.
I may actually agree with that also. Yeah. Hell yeah!
Beyond.
I think Greg just blew out our sound level right there.
Jeff, do me a favor and don't agree with Greg because I don't know if we can handle that again. But what would you like to see?
Yeah, I don't know about that. I think part of it might just be some new media controls, either like adjusting some of the things for like the music player, the photo slideshow, like adding new features to that, maybe even adjusting some things for the Blu-ray and disc playback.
I'm really detail oriented, so the thing I'd really like to see is super silly. Even though I agree with the suggestions, is if you create your virtual memory cards, PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, you can't sort them at all. They're sorted in the order that you've created them, not alphabetically or by genre or anything. I think it'd be great if they just added a little feature where you could sort the cards that you have, so you're not scrolling through 20 different things to find the one card you're keeping something on.
You could even extend that to like things like an iPod too, because that's still a big pain in the ass.
Our last question from Blackhand: what's your favorite frog color? Don't ask me, dude.
Green.
It's his question.
I like greens with the brown spots.
I go lavender if you're going level 5, like a Rogue Galaxy or Jeanne d'Arc.
There you go.
Have that toad.
Nerd.
I will abstain. I prefer toads.
Ooh.
Well, that's actually it for the PlayStation 3 podcast, a.k.a. Podcast Beyond. Jeff?
Beyond.
No?
Beyond.
There you go. Chris?
Beyond.
Next week, hopefully, we'll have a tighter schedule. Let us know what you want to hear, things that we might have missed, things you want us to cover. We're definitely newbies at this, so let us know. I'm going to set up a message board post on the general boards and the lobby, so you let us know exactly what you want to hear. Or you can send us email to ps3.ign.com/mail. You go there, you click on the link. And anything that we might not be able to get to in the podcast, I can answer in the mailbag. You want to say something?
I'd like to hear suggestions for what song they'd like me to sing the PlayStation
Sing the one.
podcast.
Sing the one we were talking about beforehand.
We'll finish up. We'll outro with that. But you put in a real song, and then I will change the words to our podcast Beyond.
Okay.
And the first one we have is a winner. You'll know why this request is happening when you hear this one. It's a classic.
All right. Well, that's it for this time. We'll see you next time, or not. And that's it. Bye.
The wheel in the sky keeps on turning. It's podcast Beyond. Oh my God.